Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started here in just a minute. First, I just wanted to let everyone know that your audio and your video have been turned off just to ensure that everyone has a really great viewing experience. But we definitely want to hear from you. So please feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat. And while we wait to get started here in the next minute, maybe 2 minutes, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see where people are all over the country, sometimes even the world. And would love to kind of hear where you're at today. You will receive a certificate of attendance after today's webinar. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a copy of today's slides, as well as a certificate of attendance, either probably later this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for emails coming from LineLeader. And let's see where everyone's coming from. Got some Texas, Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. Amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. Brett, if you want to kind of provide some background on the report and how we get this data, I think people would be really interested to know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sierra, for setting this up. Brett Miller, CEO at LineLeader. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July weekend. Nothing like a long weekend there for everybody. So live in the greatest country in the world. So thank you all for what you do. Happy to be here today. Every quarter we compile enrollment benchmarking stats. It helps understand where we're feeling like from macroeconomic conditions, how the industry is performing, where the demands are from family, what conversion stats are from throughout your family journey and lead conversion throughout the funnel. So we'd like to share this to provide some maybe lead indicators on what the next quarter looks like and hopefully justify what you're thinking and feeling out there from a business operations perspective. And happy to share this anonymized data with you all on a quarterly basis. So this is something we're going to do on a more routine, calendar quarterly basis. We did it last quarter. We'll do a quarter two. We'll go to quarter three as well. And excited to share with you all the information. So we have Teddy Hood, VP of Product, here that lives and breathes this data on a daily basis, powered by our reporting suite within our CRM platform. And I'll turn it over to him to walk us through the highlights for quarter two performance in the industry, at least from our perspective and what we're seeing, and hopefully give you some nuggets and feel free to ask questions about some of the data. We're not going to have all the slices you're probably interested in looking at, but we'll have at least some high level, macro level indicators for you to benchmark your enrollment operations against. And again, happy to share all this information with you all, and I'll turn it over to Teddy Hook.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Sierra. So we'll kind of just dive into the data a little bit here. I think most of you are kind of familiar with LineLeader and who we are and where this data comes from, as Brett had mentioned. But a lot of what we're looking at today is going to be data coming from our Enroll platform. That's our CRM system, because we are here talking about enrollment and talking about conversion benchmarks. So this is data we're aggregating out of our Enroll platform that's used across thousands of centers globally. But this data is actually going to look at just our US customer base. While we see tons of trends that exist across countries, we love comparing to our friends down in Australia as well. They're a really healthy market that mirrors the United States in many ways. We don't use them in this data set because it's different. It is still different. So we really like to isolate the United States here and look for trends. So without further ado, we will dive into the data. So before you kind of make your eyes bleed looking over this slide, I'm going to explain this. If you were on the last quarterly webinar reviewing this, you'll already know it, but I do want to take some time to walk through this because it's so much to digest. We love data, Brett loves data, our team loves data, so we'll look at this and kind of geek out on it, but it's a ton to kind of digest, and we're going to walk through this, and I'm going to highlight 4 different sections that we think are really important to look at here from the data in the trending side. Another thing is like we want to focus on trending analysis here. That's the key. There's always going to be noise in data. Even though we're isolating this to the United States, we're still taking a huge amount of data across a variety of different organizations. Now, we do primarily work with private-based ECE educators. We don't really do too much in the nonprofit space. So you can kind of be comfortable knowing that this data is looking at private early education, childcare users. And then we are going to also segment it based on how big the customer is, because that's another way to just try to say, hey, listen, our users who are 1 to 2 center operators are going to have a very different resourcing and marketing strategy than our operators who are 3 to 25 centers. And those customers who are 3 to 25 centers are actually going to have a very different strategy than those who are 26 and larger, right? You start to change a little bit the way you approach marketing, the way you approach operations, the way you approach enrollment. So we try to segment the data that way as well. So to start here, we're going to look at data from our what we kind of classify as the enterprise users, the 26 locations and above. And part of the reason we do that is it's really great data for us to anonymize and aggregate together and look for trends here. And we feel that this is the data set that can give us the best kind of macro indicator that Brett was talking about. How do we just see trends? So let's kind of start talking about the data here. And let's just talk about first, before we even look at the numbers, let's just talk about this left column here. So when we look at kind of our conversion, our digital footprint here, we're going to basically look at different slices of leads moving through the funnel and moving through the funnel to a registered status. Now, when we look at this conversion, you're going to see us referring to this publicly. When we talk about this, we're going to refer to this as cohort data. Now, what does that mean? That means in Q1, we are only referencing lead data that was generated in Q1. In Q2, we are only referencing data that was generated in Q2. This is really important because it allows us to look at a very specific cohort of leads and measure them through their conversion funnel. This is even more important when you go and slice this different ways. I like to look at cohort data as like my marketing effectiveness, right? Because I want to see how are my channels performing? Like, where are we spending money on generating leads, and which of those channels are generating leads over this time period, and how are they converting? Because that's going to tell me if I'm effectively spending money or not. Now, my operators, they might start wanting to look at non-cohort data, and we'll talk about that at the end here. That's kind of the very last view of data we have today. But non-cohort's going to be like, I don't care when they came in, just show me what happened over the last 3 months. That's super important too, right? That's super important too. But that's not what we're looking at here. We are looking at a cohort, so we're isolating the data to that quarter. So when we look at average leads per location, this is going to be that indicator of how many leads are we seeing on average generate in that quarter period per location. New lead to tour scheduled, that's going to basically just say, hey, of all the leads you've generated, what percentage of them are getting to a tour scheduled status? Then of tour scheduled to tour completed, that's really important. This is going to tell us what's our tour conversion rate. So if I see this really, really high, that's great. If I see it really low, I might want to look at ways to improve kind of the messaging and communication and strategy around tour booking. But we always say with this slice, right? It's always you want to make the customer experience for your parents really simple. When you do that, sometimes you will see a drop in tour conversion, and that's okay. If you're making experience much better, you can do a little bit of a trade-off on close rate because ultimately you're still closing more. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Tour completed to registered. This is now looking at bottom of funnel. So you'll hear me reference 3 different versions of the funnel. Top of funnel is new lead to tour. How many leads are we getting to schedule tours? This is critical again for that marketing efficiency, like which channels are actually getting leads to tour scheduled. Those are qualified leads. Those are interested leads. We know they actually are good shoppers. They want to go look for care. Middle of funnel is our tour conversion. The most unique part of enrollment in childcare is the tour. Very few other industries have anything like this. It's so unique and so important. So we need to measure this as a mid funnel. And then bottom of funnel is that tour completed to registered. Now we're actually looking a little bit more maybe at what's happening at the center. We've got them to come in and tour. That's super hard to do. It's very expensive to do. How are we actually converting post tour? Right? This starts getting into interesting questions too. Now are we actually losing out to maybe competition? How competitive is the marketplace that we're getting families to tour and they're actually not enrolling? That's a critical metric to track. And then overall, the bottom two categories here are just going to tell us, they're just going to tell us the overall funnel top to bottom. But I really like looking at the slices, and then we're going to view kind of the top and the top to bottom as our trend indicators. Okay, hopefully I haven't totally floored y'all with
Real quick, real quick, real quick, Teddy, a couple questions. When you're looking at this data, which reports do you use to pull this type of data? And can you pull on your own for comparisons? Like, how do you, if you're an individual owner operator on Enroll, what are you looking at here in the reporting?
That's a great question. So when we talk about cohort data, and I want to see a specific group of leads and how they have moved through the funnel, I am immediately going to run conversion success. It is probably the report that I personally run on behalf of my customers I'm working with, or our customers I'm working with more than any report in our system. So if you want to get cohort data, what we're looking at on the screen right now, you want to reference the report we call conversion success. It's a good question. Okay. So let's look at observation number 1. We have been tracking this macro trend conversion analysis since Q1 of 2022. We've actually been tracking this data since like 2016. So those of you who have followed along with LineLeader back in the childcare CRM days, we've actually been producing this data for 10 years or so. But this very detailed macro analysis, we really started in 22. And if you look at the bottom here, the other thing I'll explain, and I guess I didn't cover this right out of the gates, is you'll see every quarter has 2 columns because we like to track median and average, right? Median's going to tell us, hey, really what's happening right in the middle. Average is going to give us that average of all customers that make up that segment. Average can sometimes be a little bit lopsided if we have some really strong performers or really weak performers. It does tend to average out, right? I really like looking at median, especially in a trended, macro trended environment, because that's gonna help show me, hey, really where is that needle moving, and it reduces noise. We're always trying to reduce noise when we look at huge data sets. So let's just look at median. It's going to help us key in our eyeballs a little bit on the trends and go back down to the very bottom, because this is the ultimate metric. How many registrations are we getting? Like, is enrollment improving? And we are very glad to report here that for the first time, if you look at our 4 median boxes here, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, we have shown a decline since 2022, right? We kind of saw this really, really healthy post-COVID strength in our industry, which was incredible. And I will always lean on those couple year periods and saying childcare is one of the most resilient and important industries in the United States. There's no doubt. We were so strong through that post-COVID period, but it felt like in the end of 2022, heading into 2023, we were like, wow, okay, things are changing now. We may be held together so strongly in 2022, things are actually starting to soften a little bit, and enrollment's actually getting a lot harder. We were hearing that from our customers. We were hearing that from the industry. We're seeing it in the data. We're excited to finally look now at Q2 and say, actually, we just saw an increase for the first time in tracking this over, 8, 9, 10 different quarterly periods, we're finally showing an increase. It's not massive. We haven't seen some crazy jump, but we have actually shown that we're seeing on median, a higher number of registrations per location compared to the same time period last year. So this is really important. Now, there might be a lot of different reasons why this is. We cannot specifically say that, but it's a good sign that maybe we're gaining some momentum in the enrollment space. And y'all can, I'm sure, tell us in the comments here if you're feeling this, if you're not. Again, some will be, some won't be. But at an aggregate macro trended level, we are starting to see some improvement year over year in enrollment trends. This is exciting data for us on our side.
Teddy, really quick, if you're closing out the quarter, right, when are you comfortable pulling this data to make sure it's relatively complete? Because you're looking at cohort data, right? So there's stuff that maybe converts after the fact. And I mean, it's hard to, is there any best practice there? Or when do you feel comfortable pulling? Because it's constantly updating, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is constantly updating. When we pull this analysis, we're always generating the data 1 week after the quarter closes. For us, that just tends to be a reliable cutoff period where we can go and aggregate the data and be consistent. So if we're going to look for trends, we want to stay consistent on our side. Now, when are you going to cut this off? That depends a little bit. Like, we will also look at data in speed to convert. That's going to tell you, hey, like, this is a great question to ask yourself. How long does it take an interested family to get through my enrollment process? Like, if you don't know the answer to that question, it's a really good one to go and figure out. If your answer is, well, it takes about 2 weeks, then that's the number you should use, right? Like, then I'm going to go look at Q2. I might wait till July 14th to run the data if I really want to let that data mature and see. But that's the question you kind of want to ask yourself. I think it's pretty quick in early education. Like, you're not typically having families sit in the funnel for more than a month. That to me would be like a really, really long journey for an interested family, because you might be getting them to a wait list. Like, there's very, very much a possibility a family comes in. Maybe you have families reach out who are expecting and they don't even have a date yet, but you're still going to maybe push them into then a waitlisted status or even a registered status with a pushed out expected start date. But I would encourage you to go kind of understand what's generally the time it takes for a lead to get through my funnel. And that's when I'm probably going to go cap this. So if I like to say, hey, 2 to 3 weeks, it generally takes a lead to get through the funnel. I know they're probably not going to enroll if they haven't moved through after 3 weeks. Then I want to go on July 21st and run this data to really get the picture of that cohort. Great question. But yeah, we typically always stamp it about a week after. So let's look at let's go to the next observation, right? Total leads per location coming in over the quarter are down, and actually down quite a bit. So we're seeing about 16 fewer leads per location generated in quarter two. So if you're going to immediately look at this data set and you're just going to go top to bottom right off the bat, you're like, whoa, okay. And if you actually look at quarter over quarter, right, again, you just kind of maybe look at these median boxes, this has actually dropped quite a bit from 2022 as well, right? That was kind of that year still we were riding high, seeing tons of leads, lots of enrollment. It dropped from then. But really, when I'm going to get concerned looking at this data is if this number is dropping and my average leads per location is dropping, I'm worried, right? I'm getting fewer leads and I'm registering fewer leads. Maybe I'm just registering fewer because I'm getting fewer. Okay, that's a problem I need to go address with my marketing team and figure out how do we generate more demand. Maybe I'm getting fewer and registering fewer because we're having an issue through the pipeline, right? Something's just not going well in our conversion process. We're losing to competition. Families are not interested. They're staying at home. There's a lot of different ways to answer that question, but I'm going to be worried if both of these are going down. I'm actually a little bit less concerned if both are not going down. So what this is going to probably tell me is lead quality is going up. Like we're actually getting fewer leads, but we're registering more. I'm now getting higher quality of leads. This could be a really good indicator. Like maybe I'm spending a little, it doesn't necessarily indicate how we're spending on marketing, right? We might be spending more, but we're more targeted. But what we're seeing here, again, at a macro trend level is, hey, you might be getting a little bit less outreach than you typically have seen over the past 2 or 3 years, but you should start to see a higher quality of family come through. Again, at the macro level, that's what the data is telling us here. We still would love this number to go up. Like we always want to see green arrows. That's going to indicate more health, more interest. But if you're getting a ton of leads and they're not registering, you might just be wasting money too, right? So this is potentially a good trend. It could be a little bit of a stabilization in lead quality as long as we see the green arrows here at the bottom. That's probably the best macro trend for kind of enrollment health.
Hey, Teddy, we have some questions around the data here that you're showing. First, we had a question around the number of locations that this data represents.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's going to be, several thousand locations that are in this data set. So at this table, as I kind of mentioned at the start, just to remind everybody, we are specifically looking at organizations that are 26 centers and above. So think of kind of your largest operators within the US, early childhood education operations. We will look at data here in a couple slides on each of our market segments. So if you are a little bit of a smaller organization, hang tight. Like we're going to show you your specific segment as well. But this will look at several thousand locations across the United States.
Amazing, thank you. And one more, Christine asked, is this lead data for all schools open or schools open for a certain period of time / mature schools?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I actually had another customer recently come to me and say, "Hey, can we kind of look at this data for like ramping schools?" Um, we don't have that on an aggregate level. That gets very tricky for us. Our data is always going to look at open and active locations. If a location is at any point in time closed during the given period, we will remove it from the data set. But there will be some slight you will see a few centers in here that you could call maybe ramping, right? Hey, we opened the center, we know they're not mature yet, maybe we've actually started to gain enrollment a little bit before we expect it. You're going to see a few outliers in there where they're probably not up to speed. You can go pull that out when you run these reports though. So we always encourage our customers to use things like location groups, which are going to let you segment locations into groups. You might have mature centers, you might have kind of like healthy centers, and then you might have newly opened centers. And you're going to actually want to split this sort of view between those three groups. We don't do that at the macro level though, but this will only be actively open centers. We won't ever report data in a period for a center that has become kind of inactive or closed.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we'll jump to observation number 3 here. Where we have historically seen here, where are we kind of dropping in conversion? So now we're looking at slices. It's bottom of funnel, right? It's bottom of funnel. We talked about this in Q1. This is a crazy statistic to me, right? In Q1 of 2022, we were aggregating the median conversion was seeing almost 50% of completed tours registered. That means for every 2 families that completed a tour at your center, one of those families was registering. That's excellent. That's a really good benchmark to shoot for when you review this data. You know with certainty, hey, if I get 2 families through to tour, I'm registering one of them, no doubt. We saw that fall all the way to 35% in Q1 of this year. Wow, that's huge. It's 14% decrease. Now it's really only 0.7 of every 2 families around that mark that are going to register. So that's a huge shift, and we kind of seeing this throughout each quarter. But what was really exciting to look at the Q2 data is, wow, that's a huge change from 2024 to 2025. Now we're still down from those 2022 highs, right? We were almost still at that 50% mark in 2022, which is a great median benchmark. Like if you're really trying to look at excellence in conversion, if you can see 50% or above post tour converting, you know you're better than average, definitely better than the average operator. But we're seeing this get healthy again, which is great too. Back up to 44% from 35, a 9% increase is good to see. So I'm you can call me a little bit overly optimistic, maybe. We're just kind of looking at numbers here. But it's a good trend to see post tour conversion rising. That again is indicating good lead quality. You're getting leads through who are interested, who want a tour, and who are actually registering. All right, and we'll pop to observation number 4 here. If we look at bottom of funnel, now let's go look at top of funnel. And this seems to be really consistent. There's just really not a lot of change here. Again, if you're going to kind of benchmark yourself, you can say, hey, we're seeing about 60% of our leads come in and get to scheduling a tour. About 60%. That seems really, really consistent over the last 8 quarters. Almost no change here in median, which is telling us this is a pretty good baseline. So if you're kind of a marketing team who's really looking to gauge spend, of course, we're going to encourage you to go look into every one of your channels. You might have some converting at 90% and some at 30. And hey, the goal is how do we kind of spend less at that channel that's converting 30% and more on the one that's converting at 90. But your overall benchmark at 60 is not a bad place to be, right? That seems to be extremely consistent across the industry that you're going to see about 60% of your leads get to tour. And then it kind of becomes a little bit of a math game from there to figure out where our registration is. So, hey, we know about 60% of our families are going to, or of our leads rather, are going to schedule a tour. But we know historically where we've actually been losing is getting those families to sign up post tour. That looks like it's increasing a little bit, which is good. We're seeing stronger post tour conversion, even with fewer leads. Even with fewer leads, we know the same amount are getting to tour, right? But we're actually seeing more convert post tour. And that's what's helping us get this number up. So if we're again looking at the macro trend here, ultimately we're seeing better bottom of funnel conversion with fewer leads, but the bottom of funnel conversion is strong enough of an improvement that we're ultimately seeing our users register more leads than they were this time last year. Not by a ton, but just by a little bit. So it's showing higher quality lead, better enrollment trend.
Hey Teddy, you're really focused on the median here versus the average. So how do you look at the difference there and in growth, like leads to registered, right? It's like plus 7% versus the average, because the average is basically flat. It's kind of one. It's like flat for average, but it's really up maybe one lead registered per location, which doesn't feel like a lot, but it's at least better than flat. How are you looking at those two differences and how you're pulling the data here?
Yeah, and again, it's great. It's a great question, and there's almost so much data here that I am always going to kind of choose one lane to focus on first, so I can digest this. And I do like to always start with median because again, I think that's the best way to really reduce noise. It's going to really accurately tell me, hey, where is the middle of the pack, right? Where is the middle of the pack, and how is that moving? Average is very useful data as well, though. That is going to, incorporate those that are exceedingly above the pack and those that are kind of maybe below, right? And show us, hey, where is that average falling? So both are super valid data points. I like to spend a little bit more time at the median because I think it reduces noise, but average will include a little bit of that noise, but still be a valid indicator. And I mean, Brett, to your point, it is still flat on average and is only increasing by 1 on median. So it's not like we're, for those of you out there who are saying, wow, I'm not necessarily feeling this. Well, it's still almost flat, right? It's almost flat, slightly increasing. But as we look at so many red arrows over the last 3 or 4 years, it does kind of feel like if we look at the two of them, we can say, okay, we're seeing a slight increase to flat across both average and median. That's a good indicator that maybe something here is turning in the right direction. All right, great questions. Thank you everybody for sticking with us here. I know this is a lot to digest. All right, so here's the look now at our kind of market segment views. And all of our operators are very different. Again, the only reason we do this is because you have a very different kind of enrollment strategy between these operators. If you're a 1 to 2 center operator, you're really driving enrollment from the center, right? You kind of have to. If you're a 3 to 25 center operator, you now start to have a little bit of resourcing to centralize that enrollment strategy. And we know the 26 and above center operators, you really have resources now. You have several kind of corporate teams that can help you in your enrollment processes, and that's going to change your enrollment strategy a little bit as well. So the only reason we segment the data is because we know there's varying strategies used by customers in these market segments. So if we try to look at this now, again, the good news, like we can just look at median to try to help us focus here a little bit. We are seeing all of these up about one registered lead per location. Now, again, you might look at your mid-market users and say, wow, 17%, this is crazy. Yes and no. SMB, 20%, this is crazy. Yes and no, but you're kind of moving from 5 to 6. So don't necessarily let that percentage really kind of mislead you. Green is good. We want to see green. This means a positive trend to registered. But similar to our enterprise, you're seeing a much larger percentage increase in the SMB and mid-market, but actually on net, it's about the same. We're seeing about one more registration per location over that period. As we look at this data, and it's very, very consistent across every quarter we've ever pulled it. Our 26 center and above operators are just generating a ton of leads, right? They're really able to push through heavy lead generation. So you're almost seeing two plus times the lead generation. And ultimately, that's why they're going to be registering more, right? If you're generating 2x times the leads, you're going to see a 2-ish x time the lead in registrations. So that's kind of the story here. But we'll share this data, of course, if you want access to it. It'll give you a little bit of time to kind of digest the market segment you're in. That's going to give you a better indicator of where you can kind of look at your benchmarks to track where that middle of the road is. But I'm coming here positive because I've looked at this data for so long and seeing lots of red arrows. It excites me to see some green ones. We still need to be a little bit cautious. Will this carry over to Q3? We'll see. Will it stabilize? Will it maybe trend back? But each market segment is seeing just about one more registration per location over the Q2 cohort data. All right. I told you at the top, I'm throwing a lot at you today. So hopefully everybody was well caffeinated for our webinar here as we kind of dig into the data. And I love looking at this stuff, and I know our customers do too. They come to us all the time asking us for different slices of this. We started last quarter to introduce non-cohort data, and I will explain this a little bit again too. You look at all of the data we just went through and all of these slides. I had mentioned this is cohort data. This is looking at the lead data that came in over that specific quarter and tracking it throughout that period. If a lead came in, January 1st, it's not going to be in the cohort data because we are only looking at leads that came in April, May, and June. So we had customers come back to us and say, hey, well, what if a lead came in March and they registered in April? I want to see that data. Well, that's totally valid. Of course, you need to see that data. That's where we get to what we're calling the non-cohort data. So as you come to more of these webinars, as you get more of our data, as you hear us talk more across the industry, I think we're going to start really using these terms a lot. So if you hear us say cohort, think we're always locking down a very specific group of data and looking at its performance. Non-cohort's the opposite. We're like, we don't care anymore. We have no limits on when that data was generated. We just want to see actually what happened in the quarter. I always educate our customers to know both of these numbers. They're really important. Your cohort data, you need at times to look at specific cohorts, because at some point, if you're going to go gauge how effective you are at your funnel, if you're going to go gauge how effective you are with different marketing channels, you need to look at cohort data. I can't measure how effective Facebook is if they're giving me leads from 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and today, and I'm looking at them all together. My spend strategy on Facebook probably changed crazy over the last 2 years. So I'm going to have no idea what's working. I need to go look at cohort data to evaluate that. But my operators, they're going to be a little bit less. I don't care. I don't care what channel it came from. How many registrations did we get? Like, that's the health of the business. So you need to see both of those. Earlier, Brett had asked me, hey, what report do you use to generate the cohort data? That's our conversion success report. Now the next question might be, okay, well, what do you do to generate the non-cohort data? That's a report we actually call trend tracking. Fantastic report that I will use probably second most compared to conversion success. But you should always be looking at both of these data sets. And I'll explain this just from let's just go right to the bottom. I want to just jump right to the bottom here because I think this is helpful. So we might be saying, okay, Teddy, you're saying, hey, on median, there were 21 registrations per location in Q2. Well, hey, you just told me in the last slide it was 16. What's the difference here? Well, here's the critical difference. Of the data that came into the system in Q2, 16 of those cohort data registered per location. But if we break those walls, and say, hey, don't show me cohort, I just want to know all leads. I want to count the ones that came in April. I want to count the ones that came in March. Sorry, not April. I want to count the ones that came in March. I want to count the ones that came in February. Count them all. How many registered? We're seeing 21. So if you just want to know, hey, how many registrations occurred across the ecosystem in Q2, we're seeing about 21 per location, right? Now that's going to fluctuate a ton. We don't really publish withdrawal data because, to be totally honest, it's not consistent data across our ecosystem. So that's going to be a heavily influencing factor here. If you're withdrawing a lot, you might be registering more. If you're withdrawing none, that's amazing. You're probably registering less. So you're always going to hear me say you really need to understand your own data here. But when we look at a huge pool of data, we get really good benchmarks. It's going to tell you generally where the health and the trend is. So we can see about 19 we're registering in Q1. We're seeing an increase in Q2, more registrations. That makes sense based on the period it's covering. But this is really good data. You'll see it in tours too, pretty consistent to Q1, about 44 tours per location, and then about 62 generated leads per location. So we're going to keep publishing this data. I think it's a really helpful reference point, but I would encourage you to know both of these for your business. They're very different. If I'm an operator, this is the question you're going to get at. Like, I think a lot of customers come to us and say, hey, how many tours did we run last quarter? How many registrations did we get? How many enrollments? How many withdrawals? That's non-cohort data. But for my marketing team out there, like, we need to be running cohort data. We need to really understand over a specific time, how are we moving through the funnel? Cohort data is also better for us to understand, are we really good top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel? Because those are very different intervention strategies. If I'm struggling top of funnel, we got to go look at how we're marketing and spending. If I'm struggling mid funnel, I really have to look at our process to showing families how they're signing up for tour, reminding them for tours. I'm really going to dig into my tour process. If I'm struggling bottom of funnel, I need to talk to the center. I need to go talk to the center because now we're getting families through and they're touring and they're not signing up. Now, as I'm a little bit more involved as an operator and probably a little bit less involved as a marketing team to try to understand like what's going on bottom of funnel. You only get that in cohort data, but we need to understand the view, and that's where I'm going to go to non-cohort data.
Teddy,
So yeah.
real quick, of course you're showing 25. You're not showing the year-over-year comparison here. Is that easy to pull and kind of provide the comparison?
We do have access to that data. So if people are out there saying we want this trended, you'll have to just give our data team a little bit of time to get that together because we did kind of start pulling this as a new data point in Q1, but we can get it. It is definitely something we can get.
And then, do you ever look at conversion percentage in non-cohort? I mean, I think that's you're kind of right. Or are they misunderstanding the non-cohort data shown as percentage and not actuals?
Yeah. So I mean, again, like you're gonna get percentages in conversion and cohort data and conversion data because we're tracking a very specific number of leads and we're seeing that number of leads. It's a waterfall, right? You start with 100, you get to 80, you get to 60, you get to 40, you get to 20. We can't necessarily do that with the non-cohort data because we are seeing leads that are coming across all different periods now moving through these stages. So we can look at kind of like a net or a gross total here. We can see how many have hit this status over this period. Percentages really aren't going to be as effective here because it's not tracing the exact same group of leads through every status. Hope that makes sense. So where do we go from here? That's it for the data today. I'm happy to go back and look at anything, but I do want to kind of push back to you all. If this is interesting, if this is good data to review, you have a really good ability to go measure your own data. I know everybody wants just to kind of see where we see the trends going and where the aggregate data is, and we're going to continue to pull that and share it with you. I promise. We love doing it. It tells a really compelling story, but you have immediate access to go do this on your own. And a couple places I love going next here, once I get my high level data, is looking at channels. I talked a lot about that today. If I have, a great funnel, or let's just call it an average funnel. I think I'm average, I'm meeting the benchmarks. I need to understand like which channels are coming through. Are phone leads really effective? Are email leads really effective? Are self-tour leads really effective? Like we need to understand this because it's going to let us know which channels are producing. Like I'm going to go look at sources after that. Okay? I know phone leads are really effective. That's great, right? Yes, it does take a human. Hopefully you have a human answering the phone here. So that is costly. Maybe they're really effective, but like, where are they hearing about us? That's where web leads are incredible too, right? It doesn't take a human answering the phone and we get really good data. Is Facebook effective? Is Instagram advertising effective? Is Google effective, right? Is Google becoming less effective? Are we actually seeing folks out there using AI tools to go learn about care? I bet they are, right? I bet they are. I'm doing that all the time myself. So how are we understanding sources where we're spending? If we're spending a ton of money on Google and that's actually not producing what it used to, we need to know that so we can go change our spend. I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at this data. That's critical, right? What activities lead to registrations? We love looking at this too. Hey, I have X amount of phone calls, X amount of emails, X amount of text messages going out. What's actually working here, right? Text seems to be king right now. If you're not texting families in your funnel through your enrollment process, that's probably hurting you. I can tell you, I'm a millennial who I know makes up most parents today. I don't pick up my phone from numbers I don't know because unfortunately the world is filled with spam calls, like I'm very responsive with text messages, right? Because you get a chance to validate who it's coming from. So we're seeing huge amounts of success from users that are texting. You got to look at the lost op data. I work with customers all the time and say, like, it is okay to move leads to lost opportunity. You just don't want to have a super crowded funnel. If you have a super crowded funnel, you don't really know where to look. Like if you move a lead to lost op because you know, hey, it takes about 3 weeks to get a lead. Let's say that's your number. I know it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get a lead through the funnel. If they're not moving, they're not responding, put them in a lost opportunity status. Make sure you're tagging why they're going to that status and put them in a drip series, put them in a campaign, right? Have an opportunity to bring them back out. But if we're doing that, then let's go learn why are we losing? Because I'm telling you, hey, it looks like in the data lead quality is going up, but you have the ability to see are lost ops happening because they're staying at home? Are they happening because they're going to private or sorry, public pre-K? Is it happening because they're, going to another center because there was some sort of maybe curriculum or price advantage? That's very hard for us to see on an aggregate level, really easy for you to see in your own data. So I love looking at that. And then age groups is a fun one we've started to track too, right? Where are we seeing interest coming from? We're going to publish all of this data to these questions yearly. So, just hold on, please, for us. I know you might say, hey, we want to see the benchmarks. This takes us a lot of time to aggregate. We did it for 2024. We'll do it again for 2025 at the end of the year. But you have the ability to go look at this for yourself right now, right? You do. So age groups is fascinating too. This is going to tell us, hey, are we seeing, a bunch of interest come from infants, or is it actually coming from older children? That's a huge question to ask and answer because that's going to change our marketing strategy. It changes lifetime value too, right? We want families to come in from infants and stay in care through toddlers, but that's not always the case, right? So it's important for us to understand that data too. So just a couple of nuggets to leave y'all with about where you can kind of go next. But yeah, that's what we had today.
Awesome. I think we got all the questions in the chat answered, but yeah, thank you. If you're a LineLeader customer, please reach out to your success manager or myself and Teddy. We're happy to answer more questions, and we're learning more about the data every single day, and we'll continue to drop insights here on the quarterly review. But happy for any feedback along the way. Some of the questions are informing some stuff that we can probably add into this and slice it in different ways, which is helpful. And yeah, thank you for attending. Appreciate you all. And yeah, have a great rest of the week. Let us know if we can help out in any other ways.